Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan Greer, and I'm joined here by Andrew Evans. And it's the day that I don't think many people thought would ever come. But we have a Forza game on PlayStation 5 and Forza Horizon 5. It's here. It's here. And I mean, this still seems like a strange thing to even talk about, doesn't it, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, when we first mentioned it in our kind of editorial chat, you said, "What a time to be alive!" And yeah, I mean, Forza on PlayStation, it was something I don't think that we really. I mean, it was something that we sort of half speculated on when Microsoft was starting to announce that it was going to deal with being a publisher on PlayStation, but I don't think we ever thought they would like let the crown jewels like Forza out. But here we go, here we are, and it's running on my portal behind me, no less.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's still hard to believe. It's still hard to believe that when I was doing the download, we got the keys and everything for it, and I was downloading it, and I was like, that literally says Forza, and I'm actually
yeah,
running on my
yeah,
PlayStation
and it's
5.
right next to the Gran Turismo 7 tile on my PS5 as well. So it's just
Yes, fanboy heads are just
yeah,
exploding all around the world right now. But anyway, I have a confession to make, I guess if you can call it that. I've never actually played Forza Horizon 5. So Andrew has taken on that title on GD Planet. He's written about it and done our reviews and everything. So I'm, really naive to the game. I've watched a lot of footage, of course. I've read all of his content. I mean, I know how it works. I know what it looks like. But I thought that it would be interesting to get on here and talk about my impressions of the game as somebody who's not actually played it before. And I suspect that a lot of PlayStation owners may be just like me as well.
yeah,
We've always been curious about the game, we've been interested in it, but we don't have the platform to play it. And now it's something that people might want to consider buying if they're into car games or interested in racing games. And yeah, we'll just jump right into it. My first impressions were really quite good. It's clearly a very, very polished game. I think they've they've really done a lot of work on this, and it's very apparent when the intro scenes and you can see the scale of the environment. That's one thing that did not necessarily translate to the videos that I'd watched, but when I saw
yeah.
it in game and you see it running on your TV and you're like, oh, wait, I can actually drive over there to that hill. Like I really can go there, or I really can, drive, onto the beach or something like that. That's a really cool feeling. And it doesn't necessarily translate from the videos that you watch because it's somebody else playing the game. But when you actually do it, it's pretty neat. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Playground did. I mean, I will say Playground Games obviously made Forza Horizon. It has been converted by another company, but they have really kind of gone to town to make Mexico, well, the kind of idealized, fictionalized version of Mexico that hosts everything as Mexican as they can without putting that brown filter on everything that you see in movies. I think there's 13 different biomes spread across the map, and you've got the volcano, which is the highest point ever in any Forza game, and then you've got two sets of beaches, the west coast and the east coast, and there's marshes and glades and the desert and dunes, and it's all. I mean, sometimes the transitions are somewhat sudden, but you've got to cram all this into. I wouldn't say it's a small map. I think they said it's about the size of the real world Macau. So probably bigger than test drives at Hong Kong Island. But they are having to pack an awful lot into this relatively restricted game space. So you do get these occasional, and now I'm in the desert. But it all gels together very nicely, and it seems it does flow. And you've got the skies are particularly the skies are fantastic, and you've got all the storms rolling in and the dust clouds, and it is very very atmospheric. And yet it doesn't necessarily come across in videos. But I have been playing Horizon 5 since it launched. However many years ago that was now, three and a half. And yeah, I haven't really got bored of the place itself or the variety of cars or most of it.
Yeah, it's really well polished. And there are, as I started to drive and expand and explore the environment, there are some sort of transition zones as you start to get closer to the mountains. The
Mm,
foliage starts to change and the roads get curvier, and It just felt very natural and very realistic, even when you are in those transition areas. But as you play the game more, and I've only just had limited experience because I've only had the code for a few days now. But does the game eventually feel like, when you explore the boundaries of the world, does it eventually start to feel more limited, or am I still in sort of that honeymoon phase?
Not at all, actually. I mean, obviously I've been playing it through again on PS5, and it has to be said, your progress, if you have any on Xbox or on PC, does not carry over. For the most part, you have to associate a Microsoft account with your game, and I have discovered that it does think some of my progress is still there, so it keeps claiming I've discovered all the roads and smashed all the signs and so on and so forth. But your actual progress through the game doesn't actually carry over. So I'm kind of going through it all again, having not actually touched the Horizon Adventure mode in quite some time, and kind of sort of rediscovering it. And no, I mean, you will basically, you'll be driving, just trying to discover as many roads as you can, because there's a counter for that, because of course there is, and then various events will be unlocked here and there, and eventually the whole map becomes this huge mess. Well, not really mess, but a huge kind of like chaotic blue and orange and red and green dots everywhere where there's things you can do. And it doesn't feel limited at all, especially when you find yourself 20 kilometers away from your destination, which can sometimes happen. But no, it never really feels particularly confined or restricted. I mean, the narrow streets of Guanajuato and Meleje are a little bit, you know, they're tight and narrow because they should be. But it doesn't really feel restricted in the sense that you're on a limited area map. It's plenty big enough.
Yeah, I liked how the it has like the navigation map, and so you can set your destination point. And at first I was like, oh yeah, okay, it's telling me to go here to do this one thing. And then as I experimented more with the controls and started to learn how it worked, I'm like, oh wait, I can actually set my own destination point, and it's navigating wherever I want to go. So I really like that aspect of the game. I thought that was pretty fun. And I'm sure
Yeah,
as you explore more, you can, if you want to do something, you can go ahead and
yeah.
set those waypoints yourself. As
And of
you
course, you're never limited
go
to the
ahead.
roads either. You'll be like, I
Yes.
mean, more or less everywhere on the map you can drive. And so you'll probably spend an awful lot of time thinking, I really wish I had a car that was decent off road, and I will literally just point to point it. And this is that does underpin a couple of game modes later on. So there's the Eliminator, particularly, which is more or less a complete. You can access the whole map, and it's player versus up to, I think, 40 other players as you race head to head to eliminate each other and upgrade your cars. And you do over time learn where you can and can't drive in a straight line, because trees will stop you, and there are buildings that are hidden behind things, particularly in the pyramids and the temples, where they will suddenly, there's a cigarette and I've died. So you will kind of learn over time where you can and can't straight line it, and you'll learn how to pick your way through densely packed forests. So yeah, I mean, you can drive anywhere, so you can follow your sat nav, sorry, your GPS, which
Oh
is, I think,
yes.
called Anna,
Sat nav.
um,
Yeah.
with her lovely voice guiding you to places. But you can just straight line it, and take the risk if you want.
Yeah. Well, that two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the story mode and but I do want to, while we're on it, I want to talk about the destructibility of the environment.
Mm.
That's one thing that really impressed me a lot, because there were a couple of times where when you're starting out with the game and just getting a feel for the physics, and carry too much speed into a corner and you start to go off and there's like a rock wall, and I'm like, oh no, this is going to be bad. I'm going to mess this up really bad. But then the car just goes right through it, and telephone poles and electrical poles, they just knock over. But then other things are solid, are very solid. But the destruction animations, I think, are done really really well, and it does make the environment feel very real. And I'm sure as you play more, as you said, you do get used to understanding what is going to stop you and what you can
Yeah,
plow through.
yeah. I mean, there are some things that don't necessarily behave as expected. For instance, rowboats are surprisingly solid. But for the most part, yeah, it's basically you have to identify which trees are going to kill you and which ones aren't. And if it's got a relatively thick trunk, you can be fairly sure that it's going to stop you dead. But of course, you do also get points for smashing up certain things, and there's lots of different skill bonuses that you get for knocking over certain things in certain orders and in a certain way, and for certain driving stunts. And you can rack up all these skills and chain them all together, and you get bonus points, which helps rank you up, and so on and so forth. It's all kind of, there's a lot of stuff going on all the time, relentlessly, and I mean, it can be a great deal of fun just to throw
Yeah.
yourself into it.
Yeah, that's I think that's the motto of the game. A lot of stuff, everything happening everywhere all at once. Isn't that the title
I
of that
should make a
movie? I
film
think that
about that. Yeah,
yeah, everything everywhere all at once. That was the name of
yeah,
that movie that won Best Picture a few years ago. I think that's kind of what it feels like, because it is just this constant barrage, especially at the beginning. I'm assuming, I don't know how that works later in the game, but it felt like the game is constantly telling me, okay, do this, go here, do this, check this out, watch this, and it kind of throws you into things, and you don't really know what's going on. I thought, well, maybe I should look that up. Maybe I should research that a little bit, but that's just me being an old man, I guess. But I guess a lot of
you're
people
old.
just
What am I? Jesus.
no comment, no comment.
Yeah,
But it's one of those things where yeah, you get dropped out of a plane in at the start of the game, and you're dropped out in various cars and placed in different environments, and you learn real quick, like, this game's going to throw a lot at you. I mean, it's very impressive technically. I just keep thinking about things from a technical perspective and how well it is executed. But um, in terms of the actual story and what you're doing in the game, I was a little bit confused about what this Horizon Festival actually
yeah,
was, how much it was going to influence what I was supposed to do in the game, and what I was supposed to do next. I mean, it tells you, but I was never quite sure why I was doing
yeah.
these things.
Yeah. So I mean,
It's
effectively, five is as close to a direct sequel as from four as you can get. So I mean, the whole idea with the Horizon Festival is it's a celebration of motoring and driving around and doing stunts and having a laugh. In four, which was set in the UK, you had this kind of goal of ranking yourself up to be amongst the best drivers at the festival and becoming a Horizon superstar, and that was the end point. This game actually starts off by directly identifying you as the same character from the end of four, as you are the superstar, and they call you the superstar a lot through the early parts of the game.
I noticed that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's your job to help the festival expand this time. So you're kind of setting up the festival, and then the goal here is to get yourself onto the Hall of Fame, which you can only do by setting up all of the various bits of the festival. But yeah, I mean, it's not particularly signposted what's going on and what you're supposed to be doing, but it is sort of semi-linear. I mean, there's lots of different paths you can take to get there, but the aim in the early part of the game, or at least the Horizon Adventure part of the game, is that you need to do various things, whether that's smashing stuff up or completing various different stories, because there's loads of different people you can help with things to get accolade points, and that will allow you to unlock various bits of the festival, and then you set up the various parts of the festival, and then once that's all done, then you're on the Hall of Fame board. That's so the goal is kind of just to do stuff to get accolades, but there are plenty of kind of sub stories, and they are literally called stories, where you can help a student from the university taking telemetry on your car by driving really fast and going around stuff. And then there's a movie one where you do various movie stunts in various cars by driving around fast and smashing through lots of stuff. And there's things where you help your friend recover her grandfather's Vocho, the Volkswagen Beetle. It gets built into various different types. So there's an off-road one and a buggy and a dragster version. And there's all these stories peppered throughout, and these all give you accolade points for completing them. And then that all helps you towards this kind of goal of setting up all the various festival sites. And then you have kind of the showcases and the adventures and the expeditions. The showcases are hilarious because, I mean, they are really heavily scripted, but you will do one of the early ones, you'll get thrown into race this train with a Lamborghini Countach because why not?
Why not?
Yeah, and there's one we race down the volcano in a variety of monster trucks, and it's kind of like that all the time. So I mean, there's a lot to recommend it. There's always something to do, and then even without that, then you've got the festival playlists, which are kind of rotating. I mean, so that originally they were new every month, every lunar month, so they ran for 4 weeks, and they had a whole set of themed things and a whole bunch of things that you could do within each week, and then it would rotate to a new set of things after 4 weeks. That kind of stopped a few weeks ago on the Xbox, so they're now kind of revisiting older playlists, which has actually caused me some irritation when I logged into the game and went, oh, look, previous playlists. Oh, look, here's what you could have won 44 playlists that I haven't done because I didn't have access to them on PlayStation 5. It's like, don't show me that. But the point of that is there's always some activities to do at any given time, and it just showers you with rewards with kind of like cars and credits and clothing, because you can dress up your avatar however you like, which again is a massive positive point. In 5 they introduced new prosthetics for, I mean, there's a wide variety of people out there, not just men in helmets as we see in other racing games. So there's all sorts of body types and hair colors and clothing options and prosthetics, because there's an awful lot of time where you're wandering around in cinematics. So you might like to dress in a chicken suit because why not? And that sort of is a symbol of what Horizon is about. Is here I am in a cinematic in a chicken suit because why not?
Yeah. One
It's
thing I wanted to talk about too was car acquisition. So at the point where I'm at in the game, it's still just sort of throwing cars at you, and it's not really clear to me how that works. So for somebody who out there who may be interested in the game and will want to drive specific cars, can you tell us how that process works?
Yeah. So there's a few different things going on at the same time. So you can buy the majority of cars in the game from the auto show, which is basically it's a big car showroom. I can't remember off the top of my head just how many are in there, but the majority of cars are available there. A lot of cars will just get thrown at you constantly throughout the game for virtually anything you do. It's usually from leveling up. You'll get something called a wheel spin, which is a randomized prize. I mean, I don't know how random it is, but we're coming from Gran Turismo, where there's a roulette wheel that already knows what prize you're getting, and everything else on there isn't real. But there's credits, clothing, cars, you name it. There are some cars that can only be awarded through wheel spins. Again, it's less common. There are other cars that you get from completing various bits of the playlist, so they're only available there. There are other cars that are called barn finds, so you will be prompted. I think it's 13 or 14 times throughout the main story mode that there is a barn with a car in it somewhere, and you have to go and explore and find that. And then that's repaired once you find it, and there's a bunch of kind of classic, significant vehicles that you can get that way. The then there's a whole bunch that you can only get from the VIP car pass, and from various other car passes as well. So the little packs of 4 cars that were sold over the last year and a half. There's also now an ultimate car pass where you can buy all of the car pack, all ultimate car pack, sorry, not car pass, where you can buy all of the packs in one. I think that's about 35 cars. But then also you can get rare and unusual cars that you can't buy through normal means through something called the auction house, which basically requires players to list and sell the cars that they own. So you can pick up some of the playlists cars if you've missed them in like the 40 odd playlists that PlayStation 5 owners haven't had access to. You can get the cars if you go into the auction house, but usually they do go for quite a lot of money, so you'll want to build up your bank balance before you start doing that sort of thing. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
quite a few ways.
There's a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I was a little bit disappointed in so far in my chance to play the game is the cars felt kind of similar to me. I didn't feel like a significant difference between driving like an SUV versus a sports car.
Mm.
And everything, even the slower sports cars, felt fast. I mean, they were just like fast and faster. And I don't know if it's just the sense of speed in the game or I don't know. I felt like the cars look different. Obviously, they sound different. The graphics are really nice. I think the models are quite well done. They're nice to look at. But when I was actually playing the game, I didn't feel like there were significant handling characteristics coming out in each
Yeah,
one.
I don't think
Is
that.
that just me?
Well, no, I think that don't think that's too unfair. I mean, there are bigger differences between drivetrains, like all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive. Those differences are more significant. Um, you'll find that supercars are particularly bad off-road,
Mm-hmm.
which is again not that surprising. SUVs are a little bit better off-road, and you can tune and adapt your cars for various different types of driving, so drag and track racing and road racing and off-road and then extreme off-road, snow and ice driving as well. So there's lots of tuning options in there. But I mean, yeah, the sense of speed in Horizon 5 isn't terrific until you're going really very fast indeed. So you'll just be pootling along and you'll look down at the speedo and it'll say you're doing 107. Whereas in real life, if you're doing 107, things start to come at you quite quickly. Not that I
Yeah.
would know. But yeah, it's not massively unfair to say that there's a lot of sameness. And it's also, when cars are tuned, they tend to go in towards the same sort of characteristics and behaviors. So you will find that an awful lot of people have, say, an A class 800 performance index tune for several cars that do feel quite similar to drive, but they're kind of optimized for the road racing and the street racing, and you could be any one of them. That I would say that the simulation underneath it is as good as it needs to be, rather than a kind of a more outright sim. But I mean, the cars behave pretty much as you expect they would, um, give or take the odd 1,000 foot jump and 200 foot drop and the lack of pancaking. But otherwise, they behave more or less as you would expect them to be. I would say it's not unfair to say there's an awful lot of similarity between cars of the same type.
Yeah. Yeah. The sensations through the DualSense controller are really well done,
Mm,
in my opinion. I think the game plays great on controller
it is.
for anybody who is. This feels to me like a game that I would sit down on the couch and play just to enjoy and have some fun. Whereas, loading up something else, something a bit more serious, you want to sit down with your wheel and you want to play it with the wheel. Like, I don't want to play Gran Turismo 7 with the controller. I want to be using my wheel with that. And that's not to say the game was necessarily, or Forza Horizon 5 was not necessarily bad with the wheel. I was actually pretty impressed with how good the force feedback was
Mm,
with that. The physics were different. They weren't exactly what I was expecting, but they weren't terrible either. You can certainly have a good time with it. And I
yeah,
did enjoy playing the game with the wheel. And it felt a lot more realistic, that's for sure. But I also really enjoyed playing it with the controller as well. So this definitely
yeah,
feels like a game that can be enjoyed either way.
yeah. I mean, they did spend some time before the Xbox launch, the original launch, highlighting how they'd improved it for use with wheels. And it has to be said that I don't really feel the need to plug the wheel in to play this. And to be honest, I do actually prefer how it drives with the DualSense to with the Xbox controller. Um,
Hmm,
I don't know if
interesting.
that's personal preference. I don't have Jack Reacher hands for the Xbox controller. I've just got normal human-sized ones. But I find it slightly nicer on the DualSense. I mean, it could be because obviously a PlayStation fanboy, as all the comments will be pointing out at this point. But I do prefer how it drives on the DualSense, and that is actually one of the improvements in the game over the Xbox version. Is it is, to me, just a little bit nicer on the DualSense.
Yeah. What else did you notice between the two versions? Because I mean, I think it plays really well on the
Yeah,
PlayStation 5. I'm using the PS5 Pro, although this game's not optimized yet for the PS5 Pro. It could use an update, I think.
yeah.
But
I think that's the only thing that's really gripped me so far. The differences are, I mean, find one. It's um, yeah, for all of its little slips are in, but all of the positives are as well. I can put a gun to my head and I wouldn't be able to tell you what the differences are between the two titles. But as you say, that does extend to the fact that playing it on PS5 Pro, you get the options of quality mode at 30 frames per second or performance mode at 60. And there is no PS5 Pro optimized version, which you really could do with. The 30 FPS I found on the Xbox Series X when I played it originally, I found it very difficult to live with. Same thing applies with the PS5 version. It's been in performance mode all the way through the last 3.5 years, and now on the PS5 as well. But they could really do with adding something for the Pro.
yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think the DualSense is just a really good controller. It's very very usable. But they've done a great job adapting the vibrations in the controller, I think. And yeah, and the force feedback. I was using it with the Fanatec Gran Turismo DD Extreme, of course. Yeah, it's quite a mouthful, but
Overkill.
yeah, it's the DD Plus wheelbase, 15 Newton meter, and it felt really really good. Felt great.
Mm.
There was a lot of nice strong sensations. I did have to fiddle with the settings, and I don't think it's quite perfect just yet. But the more time I spent with it, I felt like I could get something
Yeah.
that was quite acceptable. And it's great to just cruise around open roads and make turns. If this had a really good PSVR 2 mode, wow, it would be really something special. Really special. I
Yeah.
doubt that we're going to see that, but man, it would be something else.
I think there would need to be sick bags on standby because there's an awful lot of colour coming very quickly, an awful lot of the time. And if you're going cross country, you can easily flip a car end over end. All of a sudden, oh no, with the VR on, you'd just be horrifying. I mean, I can't think of much worse than doing 200 miles an hour across open terrain and smacking into a solid concrete wall on a 15 Newton meter wheel. But I think doing it in PSVR 2 would be it.
Yeah, just thinking about it makes me queasy. I mean, you're talking to a guy that can barely handle Road Atlanta in or Laguna Seca in PSVR 2.
Mm.
But it would be as long as you're. I think normal driving for me is what would be fun because I guess I'm just a nerd or geek, but that's kind of what I like to do. I was driving towards one of the objectives that I was supposed to do that it was directing me to, and I was like, wait, I don't have to go there. I can just it wants me to turn
Yeah.
left. I can just turn right and see where
Yeah.
this road goes. And I did. And I just started driving up, into the mountains. And that was a really nice experience. And I really liked doing that sort of thing. I can see where I may be one of those players who isn't as worried as much about the objectives and just wants to explore. But I
Yeah.
think the fact that you can do that is a really good testament to this game being quite flexible to however you want to play it. I think that's one thing that has impressed me the most is that it is sort of this giant sandbox. It's got a lot of
That's
stuff
it.
you can do. It has toys you can play with if you want. But if you just want to build a sandcastle on your own or just see how deep of a hole you can dig, you can do that too, which I think which impressed me, and that's something that I don't think I fully grasped until I was able to play the game for
Mm.
myself.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a very pleasant. I mean, I've not even touched on the Rally Adventure and the Hot Wheels expansions at this point. The Rally Adventure expansion is ideal for what you're talking about because the landscape is terrific, and you can drive up a lovely canyon road and over this big bridge and look down at the river, and you've got what nigh on 900 cars. It's very difficult to pick holes in the car list. I mean,
Yeah,
if you really, really, really like race cars, not so much. But you've got Forza Motorsport for that. Well, PlayStation 5 owners don't. But if you're a Forza fan and you want race cars, that's what motorsport is for. Horizon has some race cars here and there. It's got a couple of touring cars and some Formula Drift machines. There's a drag car in there, but it's sandbox pretty much taken to as far as it can currently. I mean, we don't know what Forza Horizon 6 is going to bring or when, but it's going to have to be going some.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so interesting to contrast how this game works, how Forza Horizon 5 brings this idea, this celebration of car culture,
Mm.
how it presents it versus Gran Turismo 7 and the way it presents car culture. They're so radically different, but you can see the approaches that they're taking, and you can see why the fan bases are so divided in many ways, because these different types of games clearly appeal to different types of people. And
Mm.
obviously, I'm coming from a Gran Turismo background. That game really spoke to me from the early days, the way that it presented things. But I'm really impressed. I'm really happy with how Forza Horizon 5 does it as well. It's so much more lighthearted. It's so much more. It's very. It's, I don't want to say non-judgmental, but it's just like it's. I think the diversity of the car list, I think, shows that they're casting a wide net with this game, and I think that's really good for car culture. And I can see why a lot of people like it. I think a lot of people like both. I like both. I've got to say, I've just really been impressed with Horizon 5. I can certainly understand why it's so popular, and yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it more. I think that's, if I could sum up my thoughts, I think that would be it. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, there are aspects where Forza Horizon, if you're into cars and car culture, exceeds Gran Turismo. I mean,
Yeah,
um, GT does a wonderful job of presenting these cars in their ideal clean form. In the auto show in Forza Horizon, you can open the doors and open the bonnet and walk around it in a similar way to you can in Test Drive Unlimited. Um, I mean, you can't pop the hood on anything in Gran Turismo. If
yeah,
you want to see the engine of something, tough. Um, on the other hand, I mean, Gran Turismo does an awful lot of kind of wants you to earn the cars to
yeah,
kind of develop this attachment with. Um, you've had to put work in to get the car, so you kind of have this more of an appreciation of what you've had to earn. Forza Horizon very much does not do that. I mean, there are some expensive cars. Um, though there is one that is 8 figures, which is thankfully hasn't reached Gran Turismo 7 yet. I think the 20 million credits is the most for most of the very high value cars. There's one that's 143 million, which you can probably guess what it is because it mirrors the real world. Um, but there's so many cars come at you so hard and fast that early on in the game you'll be, oh wow, well, I've been in my Supra for, I mean, you might pick the Corvette or the Bronco, but I've been in my Supra for a few races now. I'll just have a look at what else I've got to do this next. Oh, I've got 27 cars. When did they arrive?
yeah,
So I wouldn't say that there isn't a sense of attachment, because obviously there's a lot of stuff you can do to tune them and a lot of stuff you can personalize. So it's got the same kind of the livery editors. You can just change the color if you like, and the decals. You can't upload decals, so you have to work with the shapes that people have created and uploaded, um, or you are kind of limited in that sense. But people do still create some amazing stuff. So I wouldn't say that there isn't a sense of attachment, but you will suddenly get a lot of cars that you're just not aware of owning. Um, which is fine. It gives you the option of, now I'm doing this type of race, I want that type of car. You don't have to spend 3 races grinding to get the money to buy this or that or the other. So yeah, they are kind of polar opposites in that sense. But I think they both do approach this kind of angle of car appreciation from these different routes.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting to see, and um, I think that's it's two sides of the same coin of car
Mm.
culture, I think, and it's great to see. I'm really glad that this came to PlayStation. I think it's going to be really good for car culture in general, and yeah, it's pretty exciting to see. Um, these major franchises crossing boundaries which we thought were ironclad, impenetrable walls. But yeah, what a time to be alive, huh?
Yeah, we're
So
just waiting for Gran Turismo to appear on PC now. That's going to be,
that's yeah, wow.
yeah,
That'll be the day.
that will be the day. Yeah,
That will be the day. Yeah, that's oof, man. I can only imagine. But this, of course, has not been a full review because we've already done that. You've already done that,
yeah.
and
I
you've
mean,
got
yeah.
a yeah,
It would just be a case of crossing out any reference to Xbox and putting PlayStation 5 in. I mean,
yeah,
I think that there's a couple of little tiny things with the sound that aren't quite the same. Um, so, I mean, there's nothing wrong with how the game sounds. It's just some of the spatial sound I don't think is quite the same on PlayStation as it is on Xbox. Some of the trips through tunnels, the sound can kind of, now you're in a tunnel, now you're not, now you're in a tunnel, now you're not. Whereas it was a bit more kind of fuzzy in on the Xbox. But I mean, the differences are so minimal that I just picked up the controller and it was like I was just doing a playlist like I do every Thursday.
yeah, yeah. Well, we'll include a link to that review in the description of this video, of course, if anybody wants to check that out. But yeah, I would recommend Forza Horizon 5 to anyone who loves cars. Just go in with your expectations set accordingly. This is not a driving simulator in with an open world. Like it's sim ish. I mean, it's not completely arcade, but yeah, just go in with your expectations set accordingly, and I don't
I
think
mean,
you'll be disappointed. You can have a
there
lot of
is
fun.
one kind of really big aspect that we haven't really touched on. I mean, you won't have encountered this at all yet because you won't
Mm,
have really got far enough. But there's a function called Event Lab, which basically allows you to create whatever you want in terms of routes and environments
mm,
and tracks and obstacles. I mean, somebody it did feature on a playlist a couple of years ago. Somebody made Deep Forest from Gran Turismo 7 in Forza Horizon 5, which it was a treat. But you can do more or less whatever you want. I mean, there are not really tracks in the game. There are routes that are laid out on the land, but there's not really a limitation. You can make a track if you want to make a track. It's I mean, that takes sandbox to just a whole new level.
yeah,
I think there's more they could do with it. There's a whole lot of technical stuff beneath where you can fiddle with the rules. They've never really told anybody how that works, and I think that's an opportunity that is going begging. If they kind of set out an instruction manual on how to properly use the event lab functions, I think you know what else would you play?
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and one other thing that I would add is that turn off the driving line, because when I had it on, I felt like I was just looking at that and following that like a rail, like a track and like a train track. And when I
Mm,
turned it off, I thought the game suddenly felt so much more natural. When I was just looking at the little map in the corner, I felt like I had more free will. As weird as that sounds, but it's like I
yeah,
felt like I wasn't just like follow this line. I felt like I could go there if I wanted. I could follow the route if I wanted to, but I didn't necessarily have to.
yeah. They
So
do get a bit angry with you if you don't follow the route, but yeah.
yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
You
it
see
does
that you
have
see your
limitations.
destination in the distance. It's kind of like over the hills, and the distance changes up and down because you're not on the route that they're expecting you to be on. It's like, stop telling me, I know where I'm going.
Do you kind of learn your way around after so much time? Like if you
You
know where you
do,
want to go,
yeah.
do you?
Yeah, I still get a little bit lost in bits of Guanajuato because there's kind of like an over and under, and there's tunnels, and there's a few streets that I get confused with one another. But you do kind of, as I said earlier, but even with the open map, is you will soon learn where you can and can't drive
Mhm.
in a straight line over the landscape. There are still surprises that will pop up every now and then, like yeah, I jumped over a hill and now there's another hill and then there's a tree and then there's an
Yeah.
outhouse, or somebody's abandoned a tractor in the middle of the field. But you do learn your way around in pretty short order. I mean, you do in Grand Theft Auto eventually.
Yeah.
It's not much different. It's considerably more rural areas, and yeah, you will. You'll do a few races on the same routes over and over again, and you will learn what's the best way to overtake the AI there, and what's not necessarily, and the routes at which they are ludicrously overpowered. But yeah, it's a case where you will eventually have this whole Macau-sized map somewhere in there.
Yeah. Interesting game. Very
Yeah,
interesting game. Very happy to have it on PlayStation. So curious to see what other people in my position who may not have played it yet. Curious to see what they think. So leave a comment and head over to our forums because I think there's going to be a lot of people picking this one up and they'll be talking about it
oh
on
yeah,
the GD Planet forums as always. So, all right, thanks Andrew. Thanks for chatting with me about it. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.